on parts not payments. We have a windstorm going on. A lot of the southeast was hit by the storm, and it's still really windy out. So we're gonna try to work in the garage. Got the Fiero pulled out for today, get a little sunshine on it. But we have a 2012 Toyota Highlander Limited. We're gonna be doing the brakes on this. It's one of Lacey's friends needed a brake job done, so we're gonna be doing the brakes. She wanted good quality stuff, so we got the Platinum Professional pads, rotors. You're gonna need a torque wrench, C-clamp, 21 mil for the lug nuts, 17 for the caliper brackets, 14 for the caliper slide pin bolts. Now, some of that might change as I get into it, but that's what I think we're gonna need. That and a big hammer, which we'll get, and a drill with a wire brush to clean where the pads are gonna go and where the brackets go back on. So I'm gonna fire up the compressor, get the wheels off, and we'll get right into it. Here's our 14, and pull these caliper bolts going into the slide pins off. Trusty hook here might fit. Also, you can see where these pads use a spring. Kind of, when you're not on the brake pedal, it'll actually push the pads back to let it spin freer. So that's kind of a nice option to have on a street car. We're going to save these clips. I haven't looked in the new kit to see if they come with them, but they probably do. Yeah. Okay, these pads don't look that bad. Like I said, she said she replaced them not too long ago. I don't know exactly when, but we'll compare them to the new ones. And let's get this bracket off so we can get the rotor off. So we're taking these two bolts out right here. That's going to allow us to pull this bracket off. That was a 17 millimeter socket I used. And we'll torque all this back on. I believe these are 70 foot-pounds. But yeah, see, you want to clean all this stuff up real good so it lets it all slide. So we'll prep this, and then we'll get the new rotor on and start throwing them back together. So we'll just come in here with our wire brush and try to clean some of this off. Take your guide pins, clean them up, and then use some new grease. We're gonna lube up the pins before we put them back into the caliper bracket. And yeah, I just wire brush behind all these clips before putting them on. That way they're sitting flush all the way. I got the hub wire brush down and cleaned up, ready to go. So we'll get this bracket ready to install, and then we'll clean our rotor and be ready to put everything back together. So we got slide pins back in, got the boots on them, they're moving nice and free. And now you can see the old one versus the new one. New one looks like brand new money. So we're gonna come in here, and these things are stored with oil on them so they don't rust on the shelves. But you don't want that oil getting on your brake pads, because you want the car to stop. You don't want it to slide through the oil. So we want to get all that off. I guess you can call it shipping oil, because they oil them down to ship them. Tore my glove up. So we're gonna come in here and make sure we get it nice and clean. All these steps, you know, they're important, so you don't want to skip them, especially this one. We'll get her nice and clean. Toss her up there. And I tell you what, Toyota wasn't playing when they put these brakes on this Highlander. This thing is serious. It's got some nice brakes. I'll take that back. I was gonna say I've never owned a Toyota, but my wife had one, and it did have 300,000 miles on it, I think, when we sold it. Just gonna spin some lug nuts on to hold the rotor so I can get my bracket on there and my pads on without having to fight everything. Alright, now that you got your pads laid out and got your wear clips installed, they just snap right on the ends, real easy. I like to take a little bit of this grease and put it right on these guide, I don't know, saddles, if you want to call them that, so that the pad will move nice and free. And then also I'm going to put a little bit right here on the back plate, not on the pad surface, but on the backing plate where the piston and the caliper are going to touch, and that way everything moves free. You don't want this binding up, dragging, burning your brakes up, wasting all your money. So we're going to take a little time here and get it. So I got just a little bit of grease right there on the back side of the pads, like I was saying, so that the caliper, piston, and everything will move freely. I got just a little bit on the slide, I call them slide saddles, but the little guides on the caliper bracket, just enough. And we're going to take our big C-clamp here, and we're going to push these pistons back in by squeezing it all together. So, just going to prop her up here, and I'm probably just going to use what I've done before. Let's just use the old brake pad. Set it in there and give her a squeeze, and should get us where we need to be. That way we can slide everything back on the new rotor with the new pads. That's about what it'll look like when you do it. Just you got the old pad in there, crank down on your C-clamp. It's going to push the pistons back in and give you room to slide everything back together. Now me, I like to put a little dab of blue Loctite on all my brake bolts. I know some people are going to disagree and say, you know, you just torque them, but a little Loctite won't hurt. I use the blue. It's going to come off easy if, you know, for the next guy. It's not green or red, or but just makes me feel a little better about it. So I'm going to start threading these back in. And that's it. 70 it is. So once you got your bracket torqued, I go ahead and put my little springs on there. They help push the pads back, so when you're off the pedal, it's not riding the brakes. So do that. Have them where they point towards each other. We're gonna slide our caliper up and over and on. Ready to torque her down and call it a day. On the front, well, on the left front. We gotta do the right front still. Yeah, we'll do that. Clean the threads off. I'm gonna put a little blue Loctite on these also, and 25 foot-pounds, I believe. I'm gonna double check it. We'll be ready to move on. Alrighty, here we go. We'll get the wheel on and we'll move to the rear. We'll come back and torque our wheels. We'll be ready to move on. Alright, on to the rear. Alright, in the rear, it's a lot of the same story, except we have a integrated drum parking brake in the rotor. So there's actually shoes and parking brakes in there. But we're going to snap these loose, same way, same wrenches. And the only thing is that we might have to beat on this a little bit to get it off, because sometimes there's a rust ring that'll build up from the where the emergency brake pads shoes don't actually sit. There'll be a rust ring, so we might have to hammer that off, but there's a good chance it'll come off. So, not a hard job, a little time consuming just to do it right. That's what we want to do with brakes, especially since she said she's going to be towing she's got a trailer she tows with it, so we definitely want to make sure she's safe on the road. Yeah, she's not wanting to come off, so sometimes you just gotta give her a little love. Sometimes when Thor's hammer doesn't work, rotors do have these threaded holes. If you have some old bolts, you can just start cranking them in. It'll just pop the rotor right off. There you go. Alright, this sucker's heavy, I can already tell. Alright, we're going to clean this up the same way. We're going to get all this rust off and get it all cleaned up, ready for the new parts. Just like the fronts, wire brushed all of our caliper bracket down. I'm going to go in there and put our new saddles on for the pads. Put our lube back to it, grease the pins, and be ready to go back together. So everything's cleaned up, going back together. Remember, make sure you get all your oil off the rotor from storage. And this plug goes right in this hole. It came out of the old rotor. You got to transfer it over. But that is a plug so you can adjust the parking brake adjuster. So just make sure we get that back in and start putting the caliper back on. And the rear is back together. Put the new pads in there. Things cleaned up, ready to go. Moves nice and free. Once we pump the pedal back up, it's going to take up all that slack, but make sure everything's moving nice. And I Loctited, retorqued all of my bolts, throw the wheel on and start on the other side. I'm going to set the camera down and knock out the other side real quick, and then we'll go for a little test drive. Got the right rear done. Everything looks good as it should. All I got left is to put the old rubber plug in and wheel. Everything's torqued, blue Loctited, greased. Everything moves nice and free. So should be good. Here we go. Got the right front on and everything's moving free. So ready to put the wheel on, put it on the ground, torque all the wheels. And remember, before you drive, we're gonna go over this again. Before you put it in gear, pump the pedal. Make sure you have a pedal, because you've pushed all those pistons back and you're not gonna have a pedal when you first go to set off if you don't pump it up real good. You'll end up in that guy's garage across the road before you ever get it stopped. So, all right. Wheels are all torqued. Got my little seat cover in here. Make sure you don't get the seat dirty. And like I said, remember to pump your pedal up before you take off, because you're not going to have one. So I'm just going to sit here for a little bit, work the pedal just like this. Feels like I got one. Let's go ahead and fire it up.
George O'Brien offered his condolences to everyone affected by the storms, and he said this morning several communities are grappling with serious storm damage, and as I asked everyone to lift it.
So hope you enjoyed this episode of Parts Not Payments. It wasn't the Fiero, but it is about buying parts, helping people out, and not getting car payments. Hope everybody's staying safe with the coronavirus right now. That's why I'm not at work. We're closed right now for a little while until this all clears up. So I figured I could do a little extra side work and make a little money. So here we go. One last thing is, if you have time, go ahead and just wipe off the wheels real good, wash them off. That way people can actually kind of see that something was done. You know, when you tell them you did all the brakes, sometimes they can't, you know, if they can't see the part or see what you did, it's hard for them to justify seeing them, you know, spending the money. So this way they can see something was done, the wheels are cleaned off, all the fingerprints are cleaned off. It's just gonna make them feel even better about getting the work done.